Seems to be correct.
These last longer. We've learned with a lot of leaders in our conferences, because they get that,
Yeah.
and then you can't have them too close to somebody else.
Okay.
Okay. We'll call this meeting to order of the City of Blue Ridge DDA meeting for June 6th, 2022. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for April 4th. I've reviewed, does anybody else see those?
I didn't see them.
All right, we gotta work with Amy to make sure we get those.
I was gonna double check to see that. I didn't see that.
Okay. Then I shall, so I take that if you did not have the April 4th, you didn't have the May 2nd. All right, we're gonna, do I have a motion to table those until next meeting?
I make a motion to table April 4th and May 2nd minutes until next meeting.
Do I have a second?
A second.
All those in favor? All right, we'll table, I'll get with Amy. I thought they went out and we're working on a couple things, so we'll get that there. Obviously, we'll speak to you since you're, Chairman's update, really don't have a whole lot there. I mean, obviously, we had our meeting last time with council. Thank you for coming tonight, Angie. And got that out. So really don't have much going on in that sense, so we'll move right to the committee updates with Nicole.
So the only update I have right now is I'm working, or have been working with Eric for a clarification / ordinance for murals versus signage. So just creating a clarification of that and what that looks like. We met today and we went over some of the details so that we have a mural ordinance in place. So once that's done, I guess we can do a presentation here, how that process is, and do a first reading here.
So so that covers murals. So on signs, are we modifying the sign ordinance the city has?
Just addressing the murals right now, that's next.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're just separating it out so that murals aren't covered under signage because they aren't in its essence. So just ensuring it as we move forward.
Okay. And then as we do that, and then we're going to continue to work on the signage for the, okay. All right. Fair enough. Because we got some comments like during Memorial Day. I just listened to the city, you know, what the people are saying. Try to figure that out.
Yeah, and this is on directional signs? Yeah, so what's, people just can't.
Yeah, I think it's just like they can, the big parking lot, I think they can locate. Now, obviously, there's some private properties that are still under executive. And they've got pretty good signage out, but they're trying to figure out, I will say the 3 hour, at least from my perspective on East Main, is doing pretty well. You know, I don't know how necessarily the cities, I've not really seen the city really like going out writing tickets or anything. But I think we have enough signage to let everybody know it's 3 hours. I've seen a lot of people come and go. You know, I'm based out of that Blue Ridge Mountain Outfitters right there in front of Olive, and usually those spaces are racked from the moment you get there in the morning, and a lot of times the car's never gone.
Yeah.
So the business owners are learning to adjust, and you see some movement there. So I think the train still needs training. You know, I think that's going to be a little slower. You see a lot of people from the train parking, like even though there's a sign, I think there's got to be some learning there. But as far as general shoppers, I think that's working, or it seems to be. I may be missing it a little bit, but you see a lot of movement during the day of cars coming and going, so they're kind of following, like, okay, I don't get a ticket, so I'm gonna bail. So I think that's good. For the employees and business owners in town, do we have the new? Did we get some more in?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we came up to get some, and I don't know, one of the
Yeah, we
restaurants.
ran out that first week.
Yeah, one of the restaurant chains hammered it, and basically ran y'all out of them, so, okay, so you got some more?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I think that's working. One thing I would say regarding anything about parking on, what is the street behind me on East Main, is that Roberts?
Which way?
We need to, the city needs to look at, we came in and built that sidewalk coming around by Cohutta and Oyster. And when it did, the concrete is built at a 60-degree turn. So you're 60-degree parking instead of straight in. But the striping is still 90. So you get this, the first car that comes in pulls along the curb because that's the way they see it. But then people will see the striping and pull in, and we're losing some spacing down through there. And it used to be striped at 90 degrees. And it's just not been taken off and restriped to make it 60 down through there. And then as you get up further, it becomes 60 again. So it's kind of a weird, you got a little stretch in there.
I wonder why it was done that way.
I don't remember, as you get up behind like Masseria, it's at 60. But if you get down right behind, say, Vertigo and the Black Bear, if you look at the striping, it's 90. But then the concrete is labeled, you know, when the new concrete was built, it's built at a 60-degree angle. So we just need to look at,
We'll take, yeah.
look at doing some striping there, because I think what it does, it cuts out, we probably lose 4 or 5 spaces if people don't realize it, start pulling in at a 90, you start taking that out. So,
Something I just thought about a minute ago, on Mountain Street, you mentioned, I don't think people has a problem finding that parking lot, but maybe if they go in there and they can't find a parking space, when they come out, maybe if there's a sign to identify additional parking at whatever address this is,
yeah.
or whatever address it is up there on Church, I don't guess that parking lot's got an address, but, you know, there's a big parking lot.
All across from the Baptist Church, yeah.
And then even the parking deck, just that additional parking at
These
whatever,
locations.
West First and what, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, we just say, like I said, when you sit in a business, you hear the people come in.
yeah,
And of course, that, you know, Linda's store just generates a ton of
yeah,
walk-through traffic, just, you know,
Yeah.
just with the Patagon, you know, and probably Caesar's store does as well, you know. Everybody's looking for a t-shirt, so
yes.
they come rolling through. So I've heard that, but I mean, we haven't heard any of the tourists really having a fit about the 3-hour. Nobody's really, I haven't heard anything on that, so.
Yes, on the signage, that's actually was one of the conversations that came up when we, canvas businesses and such, when we, for the original package, that was included, was having, and that exit from that, like you're saying, and at least pointing people in the right direction, and having it also at the entrance to the lot, saying, these are the available areas, with clear identifying and consistent signage, just like here for City Hall. As another option. The other thing is, only speaking from Arts in the Park that we just had, you know, having 11,000 guests just at the festival,
Was it, oh, my, what, was that good?
11,300 people.
Was that the best it's been?
No, not the best, but we're starting to be up there, yeah. I mean, we're in the top 5, as I was telling them earlier. Can't beat the one from last year, because it was the first one out of COVID, and it was just like freedom.
I was worried though that just with everything going on, that it might not be as busy, but I
It
bet
was, it was busy, yeah, absolutely, and vendors did well, the weather was fantastic, so the things that, you know, the factors that we needed were there. The only issue, and we often hit it, is actually 2, was the Wi-Fi dropping for a lot of vendors. That was the biggest conversation, and just for other people as well. Guests trying to reach other you know, just using the phones, more specifically Verizon seems to be the one. I have AT&T, you know, we've already done this conversation, but that was, again, it delayed till Sunday. We didn't get a massive hit on Saturday, but it happened on Sunday for sure. Additionally, parking. And a suggestion that has come up from our board and other conversations that I've had from organizations in town and groups is the possibility of maybe on those weekends, a shuttle service or something like the farmer's market at some point, and I know this is long range thinking, using that as an off-site parking with a possible, similar to what Black Sheep has, shuttle service. There's a lot of individuals that just walking the festival or walking downtown, getting back to their car, if we're doing 3 hours, they're on the other end trying to hustle it back if they've eaten. Some of those conversations came up from vendors and guests that have been here. And we get a lot of, believe it or not, we get a lot of local individuals, to support our organization that come to the festival, it's our opportunity to do that, or that are vendors themselves. I mean, a lot of our artists are local, and part of that is trying to get people hustled around, moving and parking, and maybe having, not necessarily every weekend, but when we know there's an event happening, that it's gonna be a big, big impact downtown, that to have an off-site maybe a little bit further away. And if the farmer's market isn't utilized during that weekend for whatever it is, maybe that's an opportunity to get that used and having a possible shuttle service.
Eric, you remember, there was somebody who came to the council 3 or 4 months ago that was talking about, and I thought they said they had one in Kaysville. But maybe you could reach out to them and see if they would come up here during the festivals.
Yeah,
I
we
think they're
met
called
with
the Copper
them.
Train, I think,
Yeah, I think so.
something like that.
Yeah,
Or Copper Express.
Yeah,
they did come in, we met with them, they were gonna come back with a proposal, but
they didn't, yeah.
they didn't come back, but we can try to circle back.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. That's, you good? Okay, so it comes to me. Let's go back to I think, the next step, with the discussion of the problem with the Wi-Fi and the coverage here in town. We just need to get time scheduled with, I think at least some members of council, Eric and Rhonda, to bring that group in and let them at least do the first proposal. And let's look at the thing, one of the things we want to do, I mean, we recognize that we're going to have some pushback. Okay, that's fine. I'll take on the responsibility that for those that have pushed back to this point, to give me the information that they're using for their pushback, and I'll research it, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, and let them, but we'll address it, and then let's start at least looking at the process, and then the city can decide whether but it is something that eventually, like, is the city gonna eventually go to, I don't know that the city's gonna go to meters downtown.
That's not a plan, but
Right, but like in the lot out there, is that a Wi-Fi based?
yeah, it's hardwired though,
It's hardwired,
yeah.
okay. So, but in town, and Verizon is the weakest of the two. I think AT&T beefed up when they built that over at the county yard, that tower. I think they're the one tenant on that tower over there, so they've been able to beef up in town. But AT&T had always been the strongest in town. So we definitely want to get that started.
I probably just need to understand a little better. So right now, AT&T doesn't have a signal or a tower that will hold all the,
AT&T does, it's Verizon.
oh yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, Verizon does not. But you're saying though, that we could do some kind of, something in just the downtown area that would be like a booster or something like that?
Basically, yeah, it's a network. Most cities have them, they call them smart systems or whatever. Basically, imagine small decorative light poles placed down the, say, east and west, and, maybe meander out a little bit further. 20-something, 30-something feet tall. They would replace existing decorative light structures.
I just don't know if I understand though why Verizon wouldn't upgrade.
So here's the biggest thing. Verizon could. Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, which are essentially your three that are going to show up here. Under FCC, federal government requirements, they could talk to Tri-State and come mount their antennas on the power poles in town. The City of Blue Ridge cannot stop them from doing that. They have to pay, but they have a limited amount of money that they are required to pay to the city. You can't negotiate with them. They have a maximum amount that the federal government says that they would have to pay you to be in your right of way. And you can't stop them. You can't stop them by ordinance. You can't stop them in any way.
I think it's that way with Tri-State and ETC, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, because they have they're a little different, they're a little different as a utility, because they're Public Service Commission regulated. What this would do is give the city of Blue Ridge a little more control. If you allow this company or another company, whatever it may be, to come in and install this infrastructure in place, then you can have an ordinance written that says, if you are a carrier, Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, you've got to first go onto our infrastructure before you start branching out looking at something else. Now, this is very common in cities and towns across the country, so the carriers are used to it. They would just get on that infrastructure because they don't care. At the end of the day, they don't care. Yes, if they could get on the power poles, and it would look terrible, because they're under no requirements to make it look pretty. They'll just shove up whatever they want, and you just got to live with it. And they'll do that if they're given an opening to do that. I mean, it's a business for them. But if you have detailed infrastructure in place for them to get on, they'll just do that too, because at the end of the day, they don't really care. It's just, okay, Blue Ridge has got stuff in place, we'll do that. We'll go put on the poles in LJ, or we'll go to, whatever, it doesn't make any difference to them. They'll just eventually, they'll just conform, because for them, it's just a matter of getting more people on their system, generating revenue. So for them, they don't really care.
Would that not be a way to present it, that it would be better?
It absolutely is. And the
Presented to the
proposal that these people put together showed that.
Okay.
And I think that we need to make it clear that doing this is not bringing 5G here. 5G will come whether we
Right,
want it or not.
right.
5G is gonna come. In fact, when AT&T and Verizon decide to crank it up, they're gonna crank it up on the towers that are shooting in here anyway.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
And I think we just have to do that. And I understand.
Because I think a lot of people are confused that we are actually installing 5G.
Right, no,
if we're not.
it's, their signal's gonna be in here, and this has been the age-old argument since the mid-90s. In 1996, the federal government said, back in the day, you could have two cell carriers in the state. You had an A and a B. So back then, it would be like GTE and Bell South or whatever. And then in 1996, they created the Telecom Act, and the federal government began auctioning off the spectrum. And they put rules in place, and billions of dollars was spent to buy this spectrum, and that was the advent of everybody getting a cell phone. And from that day, there's been 5G is the 5th generation of the upgrade of that system. So originally it was cell, then it went to 2G, 3G, 4G, and now 5G. And every time they've done it, there have been arguments in cities and towns across the country saying that this new technology is, everybody's gonna die. I mean, and I get concerns people have. I don't discount that or make fun of it by any stretch of the imagination, but everybody, when we do this, everybody needs to be clear of how it all works. And we can do that. And like I said, whether you go with this company that has come in and done a proposal for me to give to you, or another company like them, they're going to do a network here in town. It's going to link into the fiber that ETC already has in the street. It's going to link into the power that's already in the street. And it's going to basically mesh out this entire downtown area, so that not only you have coverage on the streets, you have coverage in the buildings. Along with that, fire, police, and everybody else can add to it. So that if they go into a building or whatever, they guarantee that they can, they can key up and talk and do their things. But what it does, it pushes the carriers onto that infrastructure, and they'll pay. And the company that builds that infrastructure will share that revenue with the city. The only thing the city has to give is its space, which it already has, and it already has utilities in that space that it has given in the past. So it's just a matter of getting that in front of everybody, let attorneys, and this company that we have even have ordinances already written that have been used in New Orleans and other places that they'll freely give to the city of Blue Ridge to use. And then you can modify, get with legal, and do all that yourself. But they'll give it to you free of charge and just say, we'd like to build, they're gonna pay to build it. To build out town, and town's probably gonna cost them $5-6 million.
Goodness.
That equipment's expensive. They're gonna pay for it up front. They're not asking the city for anything. And they'll share the revenue with the city, because you're giving them something they don't have, which is space. You own it. It's the essential model of the cell tower. It's vertical real estate. And the landowner is key, because the landowner has the terra firma that you put it on. And so, we just need to get that process started, because we keep having this come up over and over again with concern. I'm not concerned, but just not very good now.
Yeah.
We're in hilly country.
I even know, like, as a resident in the city,
You know,
it's an issue
Yeah.
every weekend.
And I, honestly, we have kids over at the art center, and now that school's over, it's not as frequent, but we have kids that will park, their families will park in front, because we have a free tower or a free extender outside the art center that used to be used for adventure race. And they'll sit and park in front of because
Yeah,
everything's
what?
online just to get the Wi-Fi, and so like they're trying to do homework in front of the art center, they'll sit on our porch, like it's that bad sometimes, the access to internet. And so, outside, removing I guess what everybody says is for the tourists, there is a lot of community need. There are kids that I do see try to use that, or people that are in the park, parents that are in the park, and their kids, so.
Well, I just think that'll be a good thing, because to just, present it like, we can do it and control it,
Or
or
it can just happen.
it can happen, and we have no
It can
control.
happen. And like I
It
said,
will happen eventually.
it will,
Yeah.
eventually.
So-
Eventually, they're gonna eventually see the numbers
Yeah.
of visitors that come here and the growth that this
Yeah.
area is having, and they're gonna say, this is a good area for us, we're gonna move. The other thing this company has is an additional piece of ordinance language for something outside of here. So if one of the companies wanted to show up and build a tower, not part of what we're proposing, but wanted to go build another tower, they have an ordinance language that they're gonna give you. And you can review it, tweak it, and do whatever, you can take with it and do what you will. They're willing to just give that to you as an opportunity to be selected to do this. And they've done it with dozens of cities around the country, so they've learned. So we'll begin that process and get everybody started on that. As far as everything else, economic-wise, there's some growth in town, but the other thing I want to get with Christie on is I want to meet with the railroad and just talk with them about some of their plans. I see they're upgrading tracks. They seem to be doing more than we've seen in the past. Maybe look at the possibility of looking at that overpass just to open up traffic flow. We'll see how it goes. Take that one into consideration.
Also, since talking about the railroad, it's been years and years since they're supposed to maintain their property by the tracks, like as far as making the ditches and everything, and all that's flat, and I don't know if that's adding to flooding issues in the
They're
city.
trying. I've seen them outside the city working on some stuff already, on some property that I know a gentleman that owns it, and they've come back and fixed a bunch of drains and doing things.
They've only maintained the property in front of my home one time since I
Yeah.
lived there, and
So I
like it's
think-
just flat.
Oh, we can talk to them.
Yeah.
They're supposed to do that, and then they were coming out the other day doing gravel in and around the track, so I think they're trying. So we just need to work with them and start to try to build that. The other thing that, as we continue to grow, one of the other things I think the city, and maybe not so much the DDA, but the city might need to look at from an economic standpoint is, I know there was some discussions one time about like more of a government type controlled housing, but I don't know if we've ever had a long conversation on affordable or type of apartment type housing for people who would work. And I know this from a standpoint of, for example, Blue Jeans Pizza. They closed for the entire month of May because they didn't have enough help. And so there's not enough help in town to cover all the jobs that are needed. But part of the problem is they have nowhere to live. Now, and again, that's a long range type consideration, but I think maybe everybody starts thinking a little bit about it, because as we continue to grow, you gotta have somebody to support those businesses from an employee standpoint, and if they have nowhere to live, they're not gonna come. You know, they're just not gonna make it. And there are some things out there, you know, there's companies that do apartment complexes like at colleges. They're not the fanciest in the world, they're not low rent, but they're nice, and you can do stuff like that. A lot of the people that work in town and the businesses are younger, and can do some things. So I mean, I think that's something from an economic standpoint. I think we're gonna reach that tipping point if we're not already there. We just don't have enough people.
And it goes back, I think we had this conversation in our last meeting too, with UNG expanding the next few, you know, I think they're already expanding their second building, or growing into a second building, as they grow their university alone, that's, you know, taking the
And it's gonna add,
economics of it and the business side of it in town, it's also just what's happening outside, and we're gonna have more college kids come in town and need a place to stay, and that's gonna affect UNG in the long run too, and keeping educated workforce in that sense, staying in town. So just looking at our mentality too.
it's the problem of growth. If Blue Ridge wasn't growing, that wouldn't be an issue. But we are, so that's all I have. Natalie, what?
I completed training, and actually it was really amazing, like got some really, really good contacts and everything. Is the city still planning on doing a group?
I'm gonna get with Rhonda and see about, yeah, we wanna do a group and get those people in just to do it here.
Yeah,
Did you do online or did you go somewhere?
I did virtual online.
Yeah.
It was Carl Benson.
So we get that. That being said, Eric, obviously the DDA has an account with funds in it, and she has presented me her receipt for her training. Do I give it to you?
Yeah.
Okay, you're the person, okay, fair enough. I wasn't sure exactly did I go to Amy or whatever?
I process all those bills.
Okay, fair enough, I will give it to you after the meeting. All right, so they'll get her reimbursed for her training, and we'll go from there. Going down through the end, is that, you got, okay?
Yeah.
Going down through the end, Caesar was not able to attend this evening with guests in town. Laura has Vacation Bible School, and Andy
An illness in the family.
had an illness in the family, so he's not able to attend. Moving to public comment. Do you have anything, Eric?
No, good.
Okay, so Eric being the only public, we're okay there. I don't see the need for executive session, so with that being said, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make motion.
I second.
All those in favor? We are adjourned.